Jorron ran, with Sena in his arms and Torben right behind them. He didn't want to waste any more time, because he didn't know what kind of injury Eione had. Once they reached the door, they heard Eione cry out, "Sena!" "I'm here, Eione," Sena called back in their native tongue, as Jorron rushed into the room. The stench was terrible due to the opened tails, and the two men were shocked at the display before them. Sena struggled in Jorron's arms, and he reluctantly let her down. She turned to Osmund's apprentice, Torben, and tried her best to communicate. "We must remove tail. I cut to remove. Boat turn and knife slip." She pointed to the cut on Eone's leg. "Cut. Dirty. Eione gets sick." She turned back to Torben and Jorron to see if they understood. Torben, a quite young man, took a minute to decide what to do. He then broke the silence and exclaimed,
"I will grab alcohol to clean the wound. It is good we are nearing the shore. We must put herbs immediately when we arrive."
He turned from Jorron and hastily left the room, shouting,
"Take them to your quarters. I need a clean room."
Jorron sprung into action and lifted Eione off the soiled bed. When Eione was as comfortable as possible, he turned to Sena.
"Are you okay to walk?"
A concerned frown overtook his features.
"You cannot stay here alone."
"Yes, I can walk," she replied, lifting the covering slightly to keep from tripping. They made it to Jorron's quarters in time to see Torben arriving in a full-speed run. He carried a bottle full of clear liquid, cloth, and a bag. He hurriedly helped Jorron correctly place her on the bed and examined her wound. Sena was wary of this new man. However, she saw he gave Eione great care and attention.
"The wound is deep and covered with contamination. However, with cleaning and care, I believe you will be fine,"
Torben said to Eione, which shocked both sisters. No one but Jorron had spoken to them directly. "You will be okay, Eione," Sena translated with tears in her eyes. They watched as Torben took strips of cloth and doused them with the liquid. He wiped the cut in one stroke, threw it away, and then grabbed another piece of cloth to wipe again. Torben repeated the process until the affected area was clean and proceeded to clean the rest of Eone's legs. Once done washing the filth away, Torben looked up to Eione, saying,
"I will now wrap the wound."
To which Eione gave a questioning stare. He simply chuckled and proceeded to show her the process. With Eione in good care, Sena could finally breathe again. She stiffened when she noticed Jorron had been holding her to him the whole time. She looked up at his face, and she suddenly felt so small in comparison to his large frame. Jorron noticed her gaze and pressed his lips together before saying,
"We should get you washed up as well."
"In the water?" Sena panicked and pointed outside of the ship.
"No,"
he quickly reassured.
"I have a bath of water in this room."
He pointed to a door ajar from the corner of the room. "Okay," she replied as he led her to the other room. It was small, with no window. However, Jorron illuminated the room with candles. Alongside the wall was a large basin full of water that would easily fit her, as it was meant for Jorron's large frame.
"Step inside,"
Jorron ordered, causing Sena to whip around and give him a shy look. "I can't," she replied, gesturing to her legs. With this, Jorron simply picked her up by the waist and placed her inside the cold water, with her top and blanket still on. "Jorron, I am still clothed," she exclaimed, looking at him incredulously.
You would have me see you without,
he replied, a slight tug at his lips. Her eyes went wide, and she quickly dipped lower into the basin, saying, "No, turn around." When he did, she let her smile free.
Clean yourself well. I will get you new clothes,
Jorron said as he walked back into the main room. Sena didn't know why, but she felt a tinge of loss at his withdrawal. Although the bath was breathtakingly cold, it reminded her of what she had lost, her life in the water. She had shed more tears in these few days than she ever did on Velimerance. She felt more fear and sadness, but she also felt alive. Sena pushed the thought away and scrubbed the decay off her new legs. After Sena changed into the clothes Jorron brought, she stepped out into the large room. Eione was asleep on the bed, with Torben in a chair, keeping busy by checking her countenance. Jorron stood as she entered, saying,
I have to attend to my men. We are arriving to the shore before dark.
He looked at the door for a brief moment, continuing,
Stay here. I have ordered Torben to watch over you both. Please stay in this room.
He gave Sena a stern but pleading look that took her off guard, causing her to nod.
I will be back to take you both to land,
he said, before turning to leave. Time went by slowly as Sena anticipated what the land would be like. Like Jorron had said, as the sun was fading, they arrived. She felt the ship halt to a stop, and her heart began to race. Jorron returned as promised, and he and Torben led Sena and Eione to the deck of the ship, placing them in a small boat before both climbed in themselves. Jorron's men lowered them to the sea. Trailing behind them were a dozen of other small boats with the rest of the crew. As the two men rowed to shore, Sena got a good look at the land before them. It was a beachfront, much like the ones she was used to on Velimerance. However, there were many differences. This one had menacing, jagged rocks on the shallows, tall, uniformed evergreen trees, and as they got closer, she noticed the beach was covered in rocks, not sand. Everything seemed gray and harsh. They reached the beachfront, and Jorron and Torben helped the two sisters from the boat by carrying them. I can walk, Jorron, Sena protested. However, Jorron just replied,
Your legs need to gain strength, but not today.
He grinned down at her.
It is a long walk to the village, Sena,
Jorron teased, and switched her name for a word that sounded similar. What does that mean? Sena inquired.
I will tell you tomorrow.
Jorron evaded, still grinning. They walked for hours, and Sena started to feel sorry that Jorron was carrying her the whole way. However, he neither broke a sweat nor breathed heavily. Although it was well into the night when they arrived, Sena could clearly see the village, lit by torches. There was a vastly large gate enclosing many small houses, enormous vegetable fields, and at the end of the wide road stood a substantially bigger house. Out from the houses came women and children, who bowed to Jorron before running towards the men of the crew. Some women had tears in their eyes and newborn babies. Sena turned to the king holding her. Jorron, how long have you been gone?
Only 3 months. The wind has been good to us,
he replied nonchalantly. I see, Sena replied before being startled by a barking dog. It jumped up towards Sena, however Jorron held it back.
This is a dog. They help hunt and farm. They're also kept as loyal pets. This one won't harm you.
Jorron explained. Sena nodded. However, what Osmund said about pets flashed through her mind. They arrived at the largest house at the end of the road, and Jorron let Sena down once inside. He turned to Torben.
Bring the herbs for Eione's wound, and have a servant send for a bed. Women's clothing and shoes to be brought at once. Yes, my king.
Torben replied, bowing, then turned to the sisters.
Good night, Sena.
And then to the younger sister his tone changed.
Eione, I will return to change your dressing. Please rest until I return.
Okay, Torben, Eione replied, and her blushing did not go unnoticed by her elder sister.